But the Administrative Procedures Act then was voted on by all the different states, and in 1973, all of your courts and everything else went under the Administrative Procedures Act, and this is where they operate. The Administrative Procedures Act went into the court on one side, what you call admiralty, which admiralty just means it's like somebody that has a stick that hits you on the head and makes you do what they want you to. And so in all of this, the administrative procedure went into effect, gave the judge the right to rule in whatever way he wanted to. They changed the intent and put it with a charge, took the innocent plea away, and the reason they had to do all of that is if you win a case, you can sue the prosecuting attorney because he brought you into court. That's why they had to do it. They have to make it where, and most people don't know that they can sue the prosecuting attorney when they win a case if they're a defendant. You sue him because he's the one who has violated your rights. And so they had to close everything down. Well, at that point, all you have now is an administrative procedure. You're having an administrative hearing, and I defy any of you, take any of those documents you get out of the court and read them. And all it will talk about is a hearing. That's all it talks about. On this date, says, greetings, you've been sued. On so-and-so date, you're hereby invited to a hearing on the above matter. Doesn't say you're invited to a hearing in this court. It says you're invited to a hearing in this matter, case number so-and-so. And it goes on to tell you all that. And every time when they write something out of the court, it will be about a hearing. You're simply getting, at that point, an administrative hearing. Out of the judge's chambers, the administrative hearing, he can make up any rules he wants to for that court. That's why you cannot use any law. Why in the world do you think you go in there and you put this motion into the court and they say deny it? Why do you think they do that? You're trying to bring a third party in there and you can't do it either. And we don't make the third parties get out of it. As soon as the prosecutor starts talking, the thing you need to do is stand up and say, Judge, hold on a minute. That guy over there, I don't know him. I've met him before in my life. He is a third party to this. He don't have first-hand knowledge. So I don't want him in here talking against me. He's representing me, and I'm a firing. You realize in 1980, it's in the criminal code, they put into the law books that the attorneys represent both sides of the court. Now you know why you go in there and you think you're Perry Mason, and you go into that court and they clobber you just like if you weren't Perry Mason, if you were or weren't or whatever. Why? Because the prosecuting attorney is representing you. If you'll read their documents, you'll see they're representing you. Had one that came to Seclear the other day. They wrote back to this man, they said, Dear Mr. So-and-so, you know, we have been hired to represent this company. And you're not to send any more of your papers to that company. You see what I'm talking about? They're telling you what to do. They're representing you. And so you will do this, and this. And what did the man do? He wrote across it, he said, accepted and returned to you for closure in this case. If you think you're representing me, you're fired. Never has heard from that law firm since. It cost them about $25,000 to hire that character. He got one letter. Now the company is bare again. What are they going to do with it? You see, you have to understand what they're doing, and they're simply taking you to the cleaners by what you say. Everything we say can and will be held against us. Now, there's another side to that declaring and saying. Anything you say, you never back down from it. You never tell them. Do they ever tell you that they're wrong? How many times have you seen some poor old boy get up there and he's been in prison for 16 years, and they've had, for 10 years, they've had all kinds of evidence showing that he never should have been in that courtroom to begin with? How many times have you seen that? Have any of these district attorneys ever admitted we were wrong in doing that? No. They say, oh no, we know he was guilty. We tried him and the jury found him that way, and they'll stick with that story. Why would you back down on something that you state, something that you say, something that you write? Do you know that when you do, you've admitted you've written a false document? I've seen this over the years, and it's so funny. Guys will put a lien against a judge or file charges on him or do something. Boy, and the first thing you know, they get these threatening things. They get called into this other judge's office. If you don't take those things away from him, if you don't release those liens you've got on him, we're going to file charges on you, and we're going to give you this much time in jail. And the guys go out and take them off, and the charge against them is filing a false document against somebody. Why? The instant you come back and say, you see, in this world, in common law, your word is your bond. Whatever you speak, it must be true, or it is a lie. It cannot be both. And so what happens is, once you write something and you speak it, and you write these bonds, don't you ever let anyone tell you that the bonds are no good. Who can tell you that? Well, I've got a book over here. It says right here that bonds have to be written this way. And if you believe that, you'll say, oh, I guess I made a mistake. I want to take that bond back. Now you've written a false document, you see. Because what is this book over here? Third party. Did anybody live 6,000 years ago? Was you there when Adam and Eve was in the garden? Nobody really knows what happens except what was written in the book. And what was written about history by other people. And history is always written usually from the eyes of the victor. And so they write it one way, and it may be exact opposite of the way it happened. So getting something out of a book is not law. Do you understand that the Black's Law thing that's been going all these years, everybody always quoted it? And they came out the other day and admitted it's all a hoax?
That's Black's Law Dictionary.
Yeah, Black's Law Dictionary. They said it's all a hoax, and everybody goes around and for years has been quoting what? Black's Law, and what was it all these years? A hoax. Books don't mean anything. It only means something to you when you write it or read it, and you can read it and you say, hey, this means this to me. Why don't everybody believe the Bible? Because they read it and they say, it ain't for me. Another guy reads it and he says, hey, I like this. You see, it's what you put your faith in, and that's what you build, what you speak on. So if you're going to get into something with somebody, then speak what's in here. Don't bring in a book. Don't start quoting to me out of the Bible. It better be inside of you. Don't quote to me, the Bible says this. Because that's the interpretation of your interpretation of what you think of that. It may be true, it may not be true. But that's how people have been foxed all these years. Now over 900 different churches. Which one's right? I don't know. I know what I believe, and I know my faith, and that's what I go on. But as to what's in a book does not establish. And so what is in you is what establishes who you are. And you have to understand that, because nobody can make you say otherwise. As I told you, I've been talking about this legal determination for 2 or 3 years. And all of a sudden, this lady I was helping do some things on a tax thing. She went in, she was trying to find the document. So she went in this law office, wandered in off the street. So the attorney heard her in there, and he came out there, and He said, why are you looking for that? And she told him, he said, you know, I think that, and by what she was asking for, he had a clue that she was not of the regular, ilk, you know. And so she said, you know, he said, that might work. I never thought of that. And for no reason whatsoever, he just said, you know, if people in this country ever understand that everything is by legal determination, they'll turn the country right side up. And he turned around and walked off. He knew she was from this ilk. And so that's the reason he told her that. Nobody can make you make a legal determination. No one can make it for you. I've written hundreds of letters to district attorneys, and everybody knows how bad they are. Criminal district attorneys, they call themselves. They may be. I don't. I'm just telling you what they call themselves. They call it, and it's right over their letter. Criminal district attorney. And that's the way it says. Now, when they write to you, everybody knows, don't you have to do what the district attorney says? I mean, isn't that? No. Always we write back to them and say, hey, I don't know who you are. I don't know where you came from. You've got to be from a foreign venue and jurisdiction somewhere. You know, you've got to be a third-party debt collector. I'm not going to give you permission to make a legal determination for me. In fact, if you think you're representing me, you're fired. And I have done many, 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 many of them. And not one of them to this day has ever written back. Not one of them. And that was verified by an attorney who was at a family reunion. And so one of the guys was talking about, this attorney keeps calling me every day, boy, and he just does this, 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 and this. And this attorney walked by, and without hardly missing a beat, he says, next time he calls, just tell him he's fired. And it struck me, and that's what it was all about. And so, sure enough, we started firing them. And sure enough, they stayed fired. You see, they can't make a legal determination because it is a commercial crime for them to try to practice law if you haven't given permission. You have to give them permission to practice law.
What he's talking about is the power of attorney that is presumed and assumed, ladies and gentlemen, and revoking that presumption and assumption of power of attorney and not coloring them with the authority to make a legal determination for you. And yes, ladies and gentlemen, you can fire them all.
They cannot practice law without your permission concerning you. So if they're representing you, then they can practice law. If you signed on with them and say, I want them to represent me, then you can sign and they can practice law. All crimes are commercial crimes. Says so in CFR 2711 if you want to believe that.
277211. CFR 2772.11.
All crimes are commercial, and it goes on to list them. And it tells, and starts out prostitution, murder, stealing, drugs. It lists all those things. Why are they all? And it started dawning on me. I kept reading that thing, and I said, why are these commercial crimes? And then it dawned on me, in commerce, you have to have a license to do something. You have to have a license to do anything. So in order to practice prostitution, you have to have a license. In order to kill somebody, you have to have a license. And no one has a license to do that, except the government. But anyway, you have to have a license. So the attorney must have a license to practice law. He does not graduate with a license to practice law. He graduates with a bar card and a certificate. And the Supreme Court says he can go out and practice law. Where'd the Supreme Court ever get into legislation? Where'd they become the legislature? I thought they were created by the legislature. And yet here they are telling these attorneys that they're licensed to practice law. What that means is that they cannot represent you without your permission. So what I'm trying to explain to you about all this is you got to understand that you're more powerful. If you've seen the movie, The Matrix, you understand what that guy found out at the end of the movie. That he was more powerful than 10,000 agents. He was more powerful than anyone because he had finally figured out who he was. And he figured out that what he said was what went, not what they said. And so he quit believing what they said. You see, the more you believe what somebody else says, the weaker you become. And the more you believe yourself, the stronger you become and the weaker they get. And this is what you have to come to. You are the one who speaks. Why do you think the Creator said you have the right to get up and declare it? But whatever you say will remain for eternity. And it's true. Do you know that when we leave here tonight, that they've got machines that they can come in this room 2 days later and record everything that was said in here tonight? Yeah, they do. And so don't ever think you can have a secret meeting somewhere if they can't come in and find out what you said. But this is how strong of what I'm telling you is, of your declaration of what you want. You see, as long as you speak the truth, it stands forever. It's when you get into taking a third party in, a third party is a liar. Always a liar. And the third party comes into your conversation, what happens to your truthful conversation? It becomes a lie. Because you can't mix a lie with the truth and get truth. You can't do it. Truth will overcome a lie, but it will not mix with it. And so what I'm telling you is who you are. Each one of you in here. If everybody in here understood all of this and practiced it every day, I guarantee you'd turn you'd turn the whole state of Texas upside down. Because this is where it is. It's within each one of us. And I'm not telling you I'm not, trying to be a coach and rah you into anything. Your life is never going to be satisfied until you understand this. Till you come to understand your freedom. That everybody is free.
Conflict of laws, or the conflict of variance of the law. There being so many sources of law, it is often the case. Let me move this over here so you guys can hear me. Let's see if I can still read it. There being so many sources of law, it is often the case that the law, as declared from one of these sources, conflicts with or is opposed to the law as declared from some other source. Hence, it is important that we should know which law will govern in case of a conflict. The Constitution of the United States is the highest in authority and extends over all the states, and the states are allowed to make only such local laws as do not conflict with the Constitution of the United States. The laws of Congress are next in order and are enforced in every part of the United States. The state constitution comes next and has authority within the limits of the state. Next to the state constitution are the statutes passed by state legislators. Lastly, the common law regulates subjects upon which the other source are silent. The laws of one state have no authority in and cannot be enforced in any other state. International law. Each country has its own laws and has no right whatever over the persons and property of another country. But for mutual protection, the leading nation of the globe have, by common consent and by agreement and treaties being extraordinarily important, formed what is known as international law, or the law of nations, which all nations are in honor bound and in honor only to respect. Ergo, it would be a breach of international law for a neutral nation to aid with ships or munitions of war one of two nations which are at war with each other, or to protect and refuse to deliver or punish pirates, there is no means of enforcing obedience to international law except by war. Admiralty and maritime law. Admiralty law consists of the rules of a nation regulated commerce and shipping on the high seas. Admiralty jurisdiction extends to acts done on the high seas during a war, while maritime jurisdiction extends to contracts touching rights and duties pertaining to commerce and navigation in times of peace. Under these laws, the terms high seas includes the Great Lakes and navigable rivers, even within the limits of a single state. The United States courts alone have jurisdiction over cases between Americans arising under these laws. Commercial law, the subject which from the principal part of this book were originally a part of the common law and are derived mainly from the customs of the merchants of London and Liverpool. And for that reason, the particular part referring to negotiable paper and business transactions has been called law merchant. The legal maxim, ignorance of the law excuses no one, applies in business transactions as well as where a criminal offense is committed. No one can say that he did not know that what the law was and thus escape the consequences of his acts or actions. Hence, it is important that everyone should have a practical knowledge of the laws of business. So, equity follows the law, right? Because contract creates the law. And thus, no man is excusable in his actions for ignorance of the law, for all men are responsible for knowing the contracts that they entered into, right? So, on the side of the road, when you have a yuppie, a badge-wearing yuppie, ascertaining you against your will, absent a victim, absent a crime, you are now the victim. He is the criminal because he has no reasonable, articulable suspicion of you committing a crime, about to commit a crime, or in the commission of a crime. He has no injured party. He has no affidavit in support of an alleged injured party. He has no first-hand witness or second-hand witness or third-hand witness to any alleged crime. And now he's openly falsifying a record against you to generate securities on behalf of his principal to justify his existence in quote-unquote law enforcement, which is really the enforcement of public policy. Are you subject to public policy? Are you a volunteer? Because if you're an involunteer employee, then yes, you're subject to public policy. However, if you're just a man or woman in locomotion from point A to point B, not harming anybody, not damaging anybody, the fact of the matter is, you being accosted against your will is in fact a crime. And it's a trespass that has caused you harm that leads later on to coercion, where they say if you don't sign this security, and they don't tell you it's a security instrument, it's a ticket. It's a ticket of some sort. Well, that's all fine and dandy, but under threat, duress, and coercion, if I endorse this thing, then I accept what you're doing to me, and I've now contracted. So I would rather just go ahead and you can haul my ass to jail, which I would never tell at them. I would say you can do whatever you think is within your powers to do, but it will have consequences. Absent a victim, absent an injured party, accosting me against my will cost you. And I don't have to tell them what it will cost them, because once they're giving the orders, once they're forcefully taking you, aggravated assault, because they have weapons on their waistband, okay? It's aggravated assault because they're doing it with weapons. I don't care if they brandish the weapon. I don't care if they pull it out. I don't care if they just leave it in the holster. That's a weapon, ladies and gentlemen. And these gun-toting morons are so stupid, they shoot innocent men and women all day long. And I know there's a lot of people in law enforcement that follow me and go, oh, that's such horse shit. Bullshit. The truth of the matter is, you have no business stopping people absent a crime, absent a true warrant, bonded and insured with an affidavit in support of the warrant, you have no cause of action, which means it's a trespass causing a harm by, let's see, well, if they're issuing a security instrument, it's trespass by way of extortion. If they're accosting you against your will, it's a trespass causing you harm by way of unlawful detention or arrest, right? So these are just some of the things that come to the top of my head right off the gate. It's a trespass by declaring an emergency, and you were so kind to stop to see if you could render assistance, and then all of a sudden, you're being a good man or woman, thinking your fellow man's in trouble, so you stop to say, hey, can I render you any assistance? I see you declared an emergency by turning on your lights. Oh, no, there's no emergency. I'm just accosting you against your will to see if I can extort you and take your lunch money from you on your way to work or wherever you're heading. Do you see how this all works, ladies and gentlemen? And all the meanwhile, they don't comply with anything they're supposed to comply with. First of all, that agent and agency is operating through title and is required by their own statutes, codes, regulations to have insurance, to have proof of registration, to have 3 forms of ID on them, to be compliant with the Foreign Registration Act of 1938, fully registered with the Attorney General in that state, stating what business they're conducting and what they're going to be doing. And I believe, if I read that correctly, it's every 6 months they're to renew that and state what they're doing here and what the business they're conducting is. And so they should have a foreign registration certificate. Not only that, I need to see a delegation of authority that grants them the right or the privilege to be operating outside of Washington, D.C. They can never produce any of that, ladies and gentlemen. And they're foreign agents on our soil, on our land, operating for a principle hell-bent on fleecing each and every one of us. See, there's no justice in a justice system. It's a mockery of the justice system when under CFR 277211, all crimes are commercial. Rape, sodomy, murder, theft, you name it. It's all financial. Well, how could there ever be any justice if it's all financial? When's the last time you saw the victims of any crime get paid out off of these securities that are generated by the criminal organization known as the judiciary? When's the last time they monetized any of the performance bonds, bid bonds, payment bonds, warehouse bonds, and turned around and compensated the victims for the atrocity they went through because of some ignorant asshole that decided to ruin their day and ruin their life through a criminal act? You see, if the judiciary was really administering justice and they were gaining monetarily, wouldn't it be seen fit that the people are compensated with the bid bond, performance bond, that are the victims? Oh, no. Ladies and gentlemen, they whisk that away to their private coffers, because that's their duty, allegedly. Or that's what they feel like doing, is unjustly enriching themselves based upon the pain and the suffering of everybody else that's gone through hell. And they say, oh, you know what? We'll just pull the criminal in here. We'll fleece him. We'll extort him. We'll put him in a private, monetized prison. We'll reap the rewards from that. And we'll give our condolences to the family. Yes, I think that's appropriate, John. We should give our condolences. The court finds that this man's going to go to prison for his egregious actions against your family, and the court really is sorrowsome and filled with great sorrow. But the second that an agent and agency with a badge shoots an unarmed man, well, he's got qualified immunity. I mean, after all, he's licensed to murder. So these are just thoughts from my head. Hope they help you out a little bit. Remember, when somebody trespasses against you, not trespassing, trespass against you, make your claim. Hold your court. I care not about their statutes, codes, city ordinances, and provisions. If you try and hold me to that crap, I will turn around and bring a claim against you so handsome and so sweet and so large that I will ensure that your badge hangs on my damn wall at the end of 90 days. That's what I want to start collecting. Badges of bad actors. Removing them from the system. Get rid of them. Don't make it so they can move to another county and get a job doing the same stupid, arrogant shit they were doing before. You know, there's an act called the Brady Act, but nobody ever utilizes it. And it's where the reports go against the egregious actors who are operating through title, as a man operating through title, doing harm to other men and women, and completely getting away with it scot-free. And that stuff's got to stop, ladies and gentlemen. We have to put our foot down. It can be done peacefully, sensibly, with dignity and honor, and we can help our fellow man in doing so. We're asleep at the wheel. We are the ones to blame for all the crap that is going on today because we have allowed it through our silence, through our acquiescence, through our tacit agreements, and through our ignorance, okay? Bring your claims forward. Don't be scared. Remember, everything we do is in good faith, with good conscience, and for good reason. And it's for the betterment of our fellow man, is why we should be doing what we're doing, the betterment of our fellow man and future generations. So thank you for joining me this morning. I've been having a lot of fun just reading and gaining this acquired knowledge. This ascension of the mind is so powerful, and we'll see you soon.